Creating dynamic worksheets. The pages we have built so far have been ideal as a teaching tool with the interactive whiteboard or even one-to-one tuition on a computer. However, it would also be useful to complement the teaching resource with printable worksheets for the pupils, again containing questions that can be randomized so that the same resource can be used as many times as needed for classwork, homework, revision, and tests if needed. The worksheet should also automatically generate the answers as well. So this is what we had before. And this is what we're going to build. Randomized questions and the answers. There's actually no more coding to learn, and we will in fact use the coding built previously. It's only a small step further to make a worksheet. In fact, it will be setting up the layout of the page with some changing of the field names and a few numbers and colors. Again, I will go through each stage of the process and include all the shortcuts and procedures that speed up the building of the worksheet. We're going to build a worksheet with 8 questions. The first term of each one is in the range of 5 numbers, but increasing by 5 for each subsequent question. So for example, question 1, the first term will be between 1 and 5. In question 2, the first term will be between 6 and 10, etc. The difference between each term for each question will lie within the range of the numbers 1 to 10. We will use a new PDF template size A4 portrait, which will be provided in the pack of resources. Let's begin with building the fields. I'm going to call the first field S, and for speed, I'm going to create multiple copies down. And I'm now going to go back and rename each one. The reason why will become clear shortly. I can use this menu system on the right to quickly rename the fields. If I select all of them and create multiple copies, going across, I've now built 8 rows, each with 7 terms, and the first field in each row ends with 0.0, the second field ends with 0.1, the third field ends with 0.2, etc. This will help to speed up the coding process a bit later on. I'm now going to add in the buttons and the titles so we can get an idea of the space we need to have for the questions. I'm now going to add some text. I can now go back to work on the layout of the fields. If I select the column on the far right and move that over, and I'm going to select the bottom row and move that down so that we fill up the page. I now want to even out the space between the fields. If I select the first row, I can even out the space between fields by clicking on the Distribute button here. And I can do the same vertically for each column. I'm going to select all the fields and right-click. Set the font size to 24. We'll have a border. and I want to center the number. And we now have the worksheet essentially laid out in the way that we want. Now for the coding. We already have the coding more or less for the first question, which contains the fields from S0 to S6. We have the first line of coding is the difference between terms. The second line of coding is the randomizing of the first number in the sequence. Then the next set of coding is calculating the next 5 terms in the sequence. And the last section is giving the instructions to hide the last 2 terms. But we want to make a few small changes here. The difference we said was going to be between 1 and 10. And in the first question, the first number is going to be between 1 and 5. This is now ready to test. Let's copy and paste this. And that is working. Let's now add in the code for showing the answers whilst we're at it, and we can do this quickly by taking these last 2 lines here, copying them over, but changing hidden to visible. That works. As with the teaching page, it would be ideal to show where we want the pupils to put the answers. And we're going to put in some simple dotted lines. Let's check they look aligned. And clearly the first one needs to go to the left a bit. How do we now write out quickly the code for the other lines? There's a quick way of doing this. Again, looking at the field names, the only difference between each line is the letter that's used. Using the code for the line S, we now need to change the S to T, to U, V, W, X, Y, and Z. I'm going to show you the wrong way of doing it and then the right way of doing it. If I go in and do Edit, Find and Replace S for T, you can see there that it looks for every S, whether it's text, a letter, whatever. It doesn't just choose the field name. So if we go Replace All, clearly this is not going to work. Let's go back. And the best way to make sure that it only changes the field name is to add in any symbols or letters or whatever either side of the S. So if I now select that and I go Edit, Find and Replace, it has now only changed the S in the field name. I'm going to copy this 7 more times. I'm going to go back to the beginning and move to the code for question 2. And I'm going to go Edit, Find and Replace, and I want it to start here. This is the first place where I'm going to replace the S with a T. If I click on Next, it will highlight the first field name in question 2 to change. And I'm just going to click Replace. I'm now on question 3, and in question 3 I want to replace the S with U. So change the letter U here. The next letter is V. The next row is going to be W. Next is X. Y. And Z. That is now all changed. The next thing we want to change is the range of numbers in the first term of each sequence. And the setup here is that the first question, S, the range of numbers will be between 1 and 5. For the second question would be between 6 and 10. Next, 11, 15. Next would be 16 and 20. Next would be 21 and 25. Next would be 26, 30. Next would be 31, 35. And the last would be 36 and 40. Let's now copy that into the button. And that is working. We now need to complete the answer lines, and now the coding for the answer buttons. We are going to copy these two lines 7 more times. But changing the letters. And for the answer line, let's just change the text color to green so that we can clearly see the answers, and let's remove the border. Let's check that is all working. The worksheet is now complete and ready for printing. When printing out with these, remember it's important that you print out a master file with the questions and straight away print out a sheet with the answers. Otherwise, if you hit the randomizer button, the questions will change again. You now have a set of resources that include a teaching page and a worksheet.